If you're looking to save money on your next used car, then shopping within the EV portion of the market could be a really good idea. Prices have fallen in the last couple of years, and the overall ownership cost can be really reduced if you're able to access some cheap home charging, which is why we've brought together 3 electric vehicles to see how they compare. We've got the Hyundai Kona Electric, a rather user-friendly EV, which could be a good option for those making their first jump into battery-powered cars. We've got the stylish Peugeot E208 with its typically French flair. And then as a bit of a wild card, we've got the ever popular and all-conquering Tesla Model 3, which comes in with a boatload of technology and access to the excellent supercharger network up and down the UK. But which one should you be choosing? What are the merits of each car that we have here? And why should a pre-owned electric vehicle work for you? Well, that's what we're going to be finding out in this video. In terms of where the E208's interior sits between the other 2 cars that we've got here, I'd say it actually falls somewhere in the middle. It's not quite as button heavy as you'll find in the Kona Electric, but it has got more physical controls than you'll get in the Tesla. You've got these toggle buttons down here, which I find really useful, and there are some nice little buttons as well for things like the heated seats. There is a lot of gloss black plastic in here, which means that it does show all the dust and all the fingerprints everywhere. But it does make it all feel a little bit more premium than you might expect. You've got the iCockpit set up too, which is this small steering wheel. Again, it's very personal, so I'd make sure that you give it a try when you sit in the car yourself. Just have a fiddle about with the different settings to make sure that it works for you. I also like the fact there's a hidden storage area for your phone that goes there, and it also wirelessly charges once it isn't there. Rear seat space isn't too bad. This is a reasonably compact car, but the annoying thing is that because the E208 is also sold with petrol in the regular 2008, there is a transmission hump, so if you're sitting 3 abreast, it's going to feel a little bit of a squeeze. But where it isn't a squeeze is in terms of the boot. You get 434 litres of space back there, which is really competitive, and it's actually the same as the petrol version, so there's really no downgrade in terms of practicality for picking this electric. Whereas the Peugeot E208 and the Hyundai Kona operate on a more button user-friendly system, the Tesla Model 3 instead, well, it doesn't have any buttons at all. It has a large main screen, which is where you'll find all of the main controls for the car, including features such as the wing mirror adjusts and the steering wheel height adjustment too. There's loads of storage though, with a large central bin and some nice cubbies under here, and 2 reasonably sized cup holders, though they are a little bit mean. If you've got people in the back, then they're going to have a decent amount of room to stretch out, and the floor is nice and flat too, so you can get someone in the middle without too much squidging up. There's also a 594 litre boot, which is usefully sized, although the aperture is a little bit small, so you're not going to get bigger items. However, an 88 litre underneath the frunk is also useful for some additional storage or keeping the charging cables stowed out of sight. Think the screen-heavy layout of the Tesla Model 3 isn't for you? Well, come on down to the Hyundai Kona Electric, because it's buttons galore in here. We've got controls for the heating and ventilation, we've got quick-fire controls for the main infotainment system, I've got buttons down here, buttons for the switchgear, buttons on the steering wheel. It's actually all really user-friendly, and once you're up to speed with the car, everything falls naturally where you would expect it to. And actually, I think using these sort of things on the move is far safer than having to delve into a screen for each and every setting that you want to change. In terms of practicality, not too bad. Cup holders are nice and large, and I've got a deep section down here. Space up front is pretty good, but space in the rear is a little bit tight. There's actually a transmission tunnel. As I mentioned, this car is developed to have hybrid petrol and electric systems, so despite this being a battery-only version, I still get a hump in the middle, which means the person sitting in the centre seat at the back isn't going to be the most comfortable. And the boot isn't the largest. At 331 litres, it's smaller than one that you'll find on the hybrid and petrol versions, and it just doesn't offer all that much space considering the overall size of the car. That said, if you're just doing shorter trips or you're just going to the shop, I think there'll be enough space back there for most eventualities. So here we have it, the all-conquering Tesla Model 3, one of the most popular electric vehicles that we've seen arrive in the UK over the last couple of years. And compared with the Kona and with the 2008, the Model 3 brings a far more high-tech experience, whereas those cars feel more like regular cars, petrol or diesel ones, that have been converted to an electric vehicle. You can tell that the Tesla has been designed as an out-and-out EV. Why is that? Well, Everything that you interact with is particularly futuristic. There's not too many controls to deal with, but the performance and the amount of responsiveness that you get from the throttle and from the general electric motor setup is really good. I do think the ride quality is just a little bit on the firm side, so if you're wanting something really comfy, then something like the Peugeot is probably going to be a better choice. But I do like that you can sit nice and low in the car, and it's quite refreshing to drive a saloon in this day and age when crossovers and SUVs are so popular. It reminds you of what the kind of refinement that you get in this car. Though I will say, because of all this glass in this interior, the interior actually feels quite echoey. It's almost like being in a very high ceilinged room. It's a little bit of a strange sensation. But you can get the Model 3 in a variety of different battery and motor setups. This one's a standard range with around 278 miles from new. But you can also get a long range version and a performance version, which, as you might expect from the name, adds more performance. I think for most people, the range of the standard car will be enough, but again, it's good to have that long range option if you need it. This used car, having been built in 2020, still feels pretty tight actually, and that's a good thing that comes with used electric vehicles, is that there's very little to, well, downgrade over time. Of course, the batteries will naturally degrade, but the motors certainly won't lose any of their performance compared to a petrol or a diesel engine. I know the ride quality is just a little bit on the sharp side for me. It feels like it's just a bit crashy and like it can't quite handle its own body weight. It is nice and refined at speed, and the performance on the regular model is more than adequate enough, I would say. Some aspects do take a little bit of getting used to. Having a big screen where all of your controls are located means that when you just want to change things on the fly when you're on the move, it's a little bit more fiddly than it needs to be. It's nice having the physical controls that you get in the other two cars in this test, and actually they show just why they're so much easier, because mucking about with the temperature and the vents while I'm on the move, I feel it's just a little bit dangerous. That's a common fault in a lot of electric cars because they all seem to adopt this screen heavy system. You might get used to it over time, of course, but for me it's just a little bit less intuitive than having buttons. That's just me. So if you're looking at the Model 3 and you're thinking, oh, that looks a little bit futuristic for me, maybe the Hyundai Kona could be the car to do the job. This feels far more like a car which has been adapted to be electric rather than designed as an electric car first and foremost. And that's because it was. The Kona was originally designed to have petrol and hybrid and electric systems from launch. It was facelifted later on through its time on sale, and that's why this Kona looks a little bit more sleek and rounded at the front than earlier models. It was quite a comprehensive facelift actually. But if you want a car which is nice and easy to get along with, the Kona could be the one for you. It's got lots of physical buttons. We've got a very familiar setup in front of us really. And overall it feels like a car that you could get into from having driven a petrol or a diesel and not feel like you're making too many big changes really. The ride quality is good, it's nice and comfy. The rearward visibility isn't that brilliant because of the large pillars and because of the relatively slim rear screen. But overall the Kona offers a very normal driving experience. Sometimes that's just what you want. This larger 64 kilowatt-hour battery brought a claimed range of 300 miles, around about 300 miles when it was new. And with just shy of a full charge, I've been seeing around 170 miles of range in this version. So you can expect it. No, that's the wrong way around. This car had a claimed range of around 300 miles when new, and with nearly a full charge in this used version, I've been seeing around 270 miles of range, which I'd say is pretty decent and gives this car quite a lot of distance between trips to the plug. There is a smaller battery version available if range isn't quite as important for you, but I'd probably be opting for the bigger one just because it gives that added flexibility and it makes sure that this car can go on those long distances a little bit more easily without having to worry about going to the plug too often. So you've looked at the Tech Pack Model 3 and the Hyundai Kona, which treads on the more standard, normal side of things. Maybe this car, the Peugeot E208, offers something in between. Certainly it's got the looks. I think the modern range of Peugeot vehicles look really cool actually. But what's it like to drive? What's it like to live with? Well, there's only one real battery option that you can go for, and it's bringing a range of just over 200 miles from new. Now I've got, I'd say, about 85% charge, and it's showing a full range of 161 miles. So with a full charge in warm temperatures, you're probably looking at around 170, 175 miles, which is a little way off the claimed range. This is a used car, of course, but that means that you could be really considering a range of around 150 miles when it gets cold. That's some way off those offered by the Hyundai and by the Tesla. But if you're only doing local journeys, then the E208's compact size and nippy handling might mean that you can offset that range slightly just by the way that it drives. One thing to bear in mind with this Peugeot E208 and with so many other Peugeot vehicles is the iCockpit system. Now, this essentially means that you get a very teeny tiny steering wheel, and it's very dependent on your size and shape. For me, where I like to sit nice and low in the car and I put the steering wheel in the position where I'd like it to be, I can't really see the information ahead of me. I can't see my speed, I can't see my range, I can't see any other driving information. Peugeot would like you to drop the steering wheel back down again in order to see that readout. But for me, I just feel like that's a compromise I don't really want to make. But you might feel differently, so make sure you have a drive of the E208, get into a comfortable driving position and just see how the data is laid out ahead of you. It might be that you can see it perfectly fine. You might be able to take a compromise on the height of the steering wheel, but again, it's worth driving it just to see what that's like. Right then, three very different electric vehicles, all sharing battery power, but how could they work for you? Well, the E208 sits on the more compact end of things, and I think that because of its limited range, it's going to be far better suited as a second car for those local journeys where you can actually get from A to B on one charge. It just won't be able to do those long distance trips, and that's where the Hyundai Kona Electric comes in. It's got a far better range, and those long distance journeys aren't going to be quite so much of a hassle as they would be in the Peugeot. I also think people who are new to the world of EVs will appreciate the fact that the interior of the Kona Electric is really intuitive and far more like the one that you'd find in a regular petrol or diesel car. And then we have the Model 3, which is as futuristic as they come and feels like chalk and cheese compared to the other two. Now, that screen-heavy layout means that you do get all of the latest features, but if you like buttons and you like general user-friendliness, then I think this one might be a tricky one to tackle. But you do get loads of range, plenty of performance, and you can't really put a price on the access to that supercharger network, which means you're always going to get reliable, high-speed charging pretty much wherever you are. The good news is that all three of these cars are available on Cazoo at a variety of different price points, and we're sure that you won't regret that switch to electric power.